Today, I'm going to share with you 5 things I did to control my emotional eating and to lose 35 pounds. 4 months ago, I made a decision to tackle my stress eating head on. I knew that if I did not come up with a solution, that all the weight I have lost on my weight loss journey already would have been done in vain because I was on the road to regaining all of my weight lost and then some. Over the summer last year, I was recovering from injuries from a car accident. Pain has been my trigger when it comes to emotional eating, stress eating, overeating, and the whole lot. And I was in tons of pain. And I knew I needed to find a way to not let my stresses and my emotions cause me to balloon to almost 300 pounds like it did in the first place. The reason why so many people lose weight and fail to keep it off is because they neglect the emotional side of weight loss. You can go and get a weight loss surgery. You can go and get skin remover surgery. You can get all the hacks in the world. You can have the most effective weight loss plan in the world. But if you do not know how to tackle your emotions and to change your habits in tackling those emotions, you are never gonna sustainably lose weight. Things in life will happen. Life triggers will stress you out. The most important thing to become resilient on your emotional eating journey is to change the way you handle your emotions. For those of you who may be new here, hi, my name is Daniella Joy and I'm on a journey to lose over 100 pounds. This is my progress thus far, and I gained weight due to injury I received after giving birth to my son. I ended up having chronic pain and a whole list of health issues, and I gained all my weight post-pregnancy, unfortunately, because I did not know how to manage the stresses of being a young mother and the stresses of being physically ill at only 25 years old. I was diagnosed with binge eating disorder, and I do have other mental health conditions that I'm currently working through, things like depression, PMDD, and horrible generalized anxiety disorder. So I'm still going through all of that stress, but I am making the changes through the storm, and I want to share with you exactly what I've done to do this. I feel like there's not enough content out there about emotional eating and about binge eating recovery and successfully losing weight while struggling with binge eating from someone who was morbidly obese. I am now officially in the overweight category, so yay, that is insane. But let's jump into the 5 things I did that helped me to lose 35 pounds and to control my emotional eating. The first thing I did was I decided to create a system. Creating a system that provided awareness. When you are emotionally eating, you are the opposite of mindful. You are mindless. So in order to bring mindfulness to my journey, I had to track. So I created this monthly reset routine where I would list all the amount of calories I ate every day for a month to really see trends in my emotional eating in relation to my cycle, in relation to what's going on in my life, and so forth. In order to make change, you gotta bring awareness. So I created this calendar that I put in the kitchen, so every time I walk by, I see it. If you're gonna do a system like this, you gotta put it in an area that you are constantly visiting, so you are constantly reiterating that subconscious mind to make changes. So on this calendar and on this little vision board I made, I would track my calories. I would also have a habit tracker where I would track habits that I wanted to instill, habits that I knew that would help me tackle my emotional eating and stress eating issues. Things like meditating on the daily, things like journaling and connecting with myself, things like going out for a walk and exercising and spending time with other people who nourish my spirit. I also took the initiative to start tracking my weight. Yes, I know. That's a hard one to do when you struggle with emotional eating, guys. Because that fluctuation on the scale, ooh, it can bring up all the emotions, but I had to do it. I needed to know how what I was putting in my body and what exercises I was doing was influencing my body. I needed the data. And the reason why I wanted the data was so I can use my logical mind and not that emotional mind to reason with things. Because when you're emotionally eating and you're not focusing and you're in this mindless state, just being drowned by all your emotions, you are not going to be using that logical mind, that wise mind. So in order for me to get that wise mind going, I kind of just listed my weight, listed my calories, and I observed it and looked at it from a third-party lens. I didn't identify with the weight. I didn't identify with the amount of calories I ate. And I didn't identify with the binge eating days. I just used it as data so I can understand. I approached it with curiosity, because when you approach things with curiosity, it takes away that emotional side of things and it allows you to think objectively and to make the necessary changes. The next thing I did was started recognizing my emotional triggers. Whew, that is a hard one, because like when you're dealing with those emotions, you don't want to sit with them. But honestly, it is through the pain that we heal the pain. I know it sucks, but the only way to learn how to handle your emotions in an appropriate way is that you gotta feel them. You gotta sit with them and you gotta be with them and you gotta get to know them, unfortunately. The worst thing you can do is avoid, because avoidance just magnifies the problem. You need to do the opposite of avoidance. My number one emotional trigger is the pain. My other emotional triggers include maybe getting into an argument, going on the road and someone cutting you off, maybe being exhausted from a long week of work, trying to keep up with it all. Comparison mind is another one. Oh my gosh, comparing yourself subconsciously to other people. These are all emotional triggers that you need to identify. Now, here's the thing to do. When you're in the middle of an emotional eating spell or a binge eating spell, try your best to stop yourself in the middle of stress eating. I know it's hard, but I promise with practice, this gets easier. I've done this myself. That's how I got through. So basically, you need to stop yourself. And then in the middle of the overeating session, you gotta look back and see what happened to get me to this moment. What emotions led me to where I am right now? Recognize it. Write it down quickly, and then just go off and continue on with what you're doing. Or if you have the willpower, stop in that moment. It doesn't matter what you do. The most important thing that you do is recognizing and being aware of what triggered you to this point. The next day or a couple hours later, sit down and objectively work with those emotions. Try to find an alternative method to dealing with that emotion. So for example, maybe you started stress eating because something angered you. So instead of eating, perhaps go for a walk, maybe exercise, go talk to a friend, journal out your feelings. The key to dealing with emotional eating is to replacing that habit of eating with a habit of dealing with the emotions, or with the habit of self-regulating yourself. A helpful way to understand your emotions is to identify your emotions. I recommend going on Google and just Googling a list of emotions. So you have that list, you print it out, so when it's time to sit down and manage your emotions or to objectively be aware of your emotions, you have labels with your emotions. This is something I've learned in therapy. It's really important to name the emotion. Another thing that I really learned was when you're in a moment of struggle or you're thinking about binging or stress eating, but you're trying not to, perhaps sitting down and visualizing the emotions that you're dealing with in clouds, or the thoughts that are stressing you out, deal with it in clouds. See it, visualize your emotions floating away. Like, I'm stressed about the scale going up. I'm stressed about work. I'm stressed about financial issues. Just having those float away and just being the observer and not identifying with those emotions. This is going to take time and practice, but don't give up. I promise you it gets easier. I am living proof that this can be done. I literally made this transformation mentally within 3 months, I would say. September, I made the decision to go from binging every day, which is what I was doing over the summer, to maybe incrementally going down and saying, hey, I'll allow myself no more than 4 binge days this month. Then October, that went down to 2, and then November came around, it went down to 1, but I actually ended up not binging at all. So it took me about 3 months, 90 days. I truly believe it takes 90 days to set a new habit. So don't give up and don't give in. It can be done, and I'm living proof of it. The next thing I did to help stop my emotional eating was mindfully eating. Okay, mindful eating was, it was a challenge. It was something that my old therapist gave me to do. So mindful eating is basically a practice of eating mindfully with no distractions. You set up a ritual. You make your food, you smell the food, you be mindful in the moment, you use all your senses. What are like a few things you can smell? Let's say you're cooking an omelet and it's filled with peppers and maybe some sausages and some onions. Sorry if you don't like any of those things, but work with me here. Choose something that you like that's healthy. And you sit there and you're cooking and you're like, there goes the peppers, or there goes the sound of the butter cracking as I put the egg in, or there goes the color of the eggs. You kind of sit there and just be with the food. Be in the moment, the eternal present moment, as Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, just being in the moment, appreciating the process of cooking. And then when the food's done, you plate it on your plate it with a ritual, sit down with it, and then you kind of look at it, you smell it, you feel the texture with your hands, and then you put it in your mouth and you slowly eat it, and you let the flavor like just ooze through. That is a method that I started off in the beginning. I used it for a couple weeks because it did help regulate my emotions, because when you're in a heightened state of stress and a heightened state of emotions, you have to find a way to regulate it. There are plenty like of emotional eating or mindful eating tactics that you can use. Maybe I can list some below if I can find some from Google, but that is another major tactic. The next thing I did to help my emotional eating was to see a psychologist. I needed to get help. I knew I needed to get help because oh my gosh, I was out of control. Now, unfortunately, our mental health system is broken, and it's really hard to find a psychologist to just help you with stress eating and emotional eating. So the way I did it, I got into a car accident. So the psychologist I've been working with, she deals with trauma. So I think the best way to go with is to find a psychologist that deals with the things you're dealing with. So she deals with trauma and helping people with chronic pain issues. Whatever your trigger is, find a psychologist or a therapist or what have you that is an expert in that field and work with them and talk about how those triggers of whatever your triggers are triggering you to overeat, instead of going the route and focusing on finding someone who specifically deals with binge eating or stress eating or emotional eating. My psychologist also practices something known as EMDR. I don't know if you call it hypnosis, because I know on YouTube like you've been seeing a lot of things about hypnosis meditations and whatnot, but EMDR. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing, and it's basically a method to use to help people with PTSD and people who deal with trauma. It is a very complex thing. Usually you look at a screen, follow a dot, and then your therapist kind of coaches you through what they want you to visualize. You can also do it with sound, anything that involves bilateral movements. So maybe you can find someone that specializes in EMDR. Now, you don't have to be in person to do EMDR, but personally, with my experience when it comes to mental health, I prefer my therapist to be in person. I did not find success with online therapy. The final thing I did to help control my emotional eating and stress eating and to lose 35 pounds was OMAD style intermittent fasting. Now hold on, this is a method I've used because it's helped me. You can find whatever method you use to help you reduce the amount of calories you're consuming. So the reason why this style of intermittent fasting, which is basically fasting 22 hours a day, has worked, because it shrunk my eating window so much that I didn't have time to emotionally eat. I didn't have time to overeat, because I was noticing with everything going on with my body, when I would eat in the morning and I would finish my breakfast, I would just think about food all day, and I would just have the urge to binge and binge and binge. But with fasting, it kind of metabolically resets your body and it kind of resets your mind. There are benefits to the brain when it comes to fasting. So I was able to get into this routine where I would just go about my day. I would fast. Now during these fasting hours, I actually drank coffee. I would drink things like very low calorie things, nothing more than 60 calories. The most expensive caloric thing I would have would be my coffee, because I would put 2 cream in it. And cream is about 30 calories, and I put 2 servings in it because I have a big coffee. I would have things, low calorie things throughout the day. I would drink a lot of water. I would have bone broth, which is a good one, filling it up with salt because you want to make sure you have electrolytes. So for some reason, this method of fasting has been really helping with my binge eating. I don't know why. I opened up my eating window the other day and I had the urges to binge still, so I knew I needed to stick with this OMAD style of intermittent fasting and continue on. It's amazing because I was always the person that was like, OMAD is stupid. And here I am doing it. Well, will I be doing it permanently? I don't know. I doubt it, but I am currently doing, because it's helping me keep the binging at bay while I heal my body. Bonus tip, make sure you are taking care of your mental health daily. Make sure you're doing something to improve your self-improvement daily. So for me, that's journaling, meditating, mental check-ins, constantly checking in with myself, constantly checking in with my emotions. Things like listening to podcasts, spiritual stuff. I've been very into Christianity lately and listening to the wise pastors that are out there on the internet, just hearing things from Pastor Torrey, Pastor T.D. Jakes, Pastor Sarah Jakes, and there's this new gentleman, I totally forgot his name, I think it's Roosevelt something. He's with Pastor Torrey. Oh, what a man, because he's going through stuff himself and he's sharing that. Like, I love connecting with people who are going through stuff right now and showing us how we are doing it. That's what I'm doing right now, and I'm hoping that resonates with you. Anyway, I have plenty more tips when it comes to emotional eating. I am making this my life's mission because it's something I really struggle with, and I have so much more to give. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button below and subscribe if you're new here, because I have so much more to offer, because this is truly something I want to help people with. And I feel like it's the missing piece when it comes to weight loss or just trying to get a new routine going. And if you made it this far into the video, just drop in 3 green hearts below, because green is my favorite color, but I'm vibing on purple right now because purple is the color of my higher self. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.